Hey everyone, CWD Music Reviews here. I'm CWD and this is going to be a music review of the new Sampha album, Process. This is the latest full-length album from the UK-based singer-songwriter, producer Sampha. This guy's been around for quite a while now, mostly in the collaborative scene. If you've heard of this guy, you've probably listened to Subtract, or maybe you've heard him off of a couple of Drake songs, or you heard him on the latest Solange album, or you heard him on Kanye West's The Life of Pablo. So he's been around for quite a while on the collaborative front, dating back to, as far as I know, 2011 with Subtract's debut album. He's got a couple of EPs under his belt, of which I haven't really thoroughly listened to. But needless to say, Sampha is a pretty busy guy. You know, he definitely is kind of an elusive force right now. No one's 100% sure what kind of music Sampha actually does. So when it was announced he had a new album coming out, people like me were definitely intrigued with what a Sampha album could sound like. What could Sampha possibly do throughout the course of 40 minutes? And now that I have given this thing many listens as I have, I'm in love with this thing, like, unapologetically. As mentioned, this album's about 40 minutes, it's about 10 tracks in length. So it's pretty standard. It actually adds to quite a bit of accessibility to what it is Sampha does. This guy does not overstay his welcome. He is definitely giving us a taste of what he can do throughout the course of 10 tracks. And what it is he can do is particularly impressive. The credits on this album has him as co-producer for every single track, I believe, with the assistance from Rhoda McDonald. But I don't think his contributions are as well noted as what Sampha is delivering upon the listener on kind of an instrumental and production front. This is easily the most intricate and pretty progressive beats and instrumentation in this realm of this singer-songwriter, electronic producer type vein, of which is kind of a niche, sort of. The only few people I think does that are James Blake, Nicholas Jarre, arguably Bjork. He definitely is crafting a sound of his own in this vein, and it definitely shows. What I dig about a good chunk of these tracks is how alive they feel. You're not getting the basis of the instrumental, and then you just hear that as like the platform for what it is Sampha is singing about, of which he sings particularly well in this project. Take a track like Blood on Me. Yeah, you get these pretty march-like percussion. There's like this nice drum and I think a woodblock syncopation going on. But as it goes along, you feel this dramatic atmosphere build as Sampha is singing more immediately, and I do like his vocals on the hook. I swear they smell this blood on me. And on this hook also has this really eerie piano line that I dig quite a bit. And throughout the course of the track, it just builds in this dramatic atmosphere as the instrumentation gets a bit more intricate, a bit more alarming, along with Sampha's vocals. There's definitely a pretty consummate marriage between the instrumentation and what Sampha himself does on a vocal and lyrical front. Even a track like No One Knows Me Like the Piano, which is pretty much a straightforward piano ballad, there's maybe some slight little electronic beats that are hanging in the background, and I do like how Sampha's own grouped vocals are layered on this track. And even with this track, a song about how no single thing or anyone in the world knows him like the piano that he played when he was growing up. It's a really touching song lyrically. And this piano ballad and his vocals all together, it enhances the track particularly well, even if it's probably the most straightforward and stripped-back track on the whole record. Sampha knows how to bring these instrumentals to life, you know. Even if they are pretty synthetic in atmosphere, there's kind of an organic feel to what's going on. This sounds like a DJ at work. Take a track like Reverse Faults, which has these really eerie and kind of off-kilter synth string arpeggios of some sort, along with this really steady bass that goes along. And as the track goes on, this type of beat pattern gets a bit more tricky. It gets a lot more interesting as the track just progresses, especially on the hook. God, each time the hook comes in, it's just hard-hitting and particularly dramatic. And I do love how it ends anticlimactically, which is weird because that's something you'd think I wouldn't really be into, but the way it just ends in this kind of anticlimactic fashion works miraculously enough. Or take the track Kora Sings, which has these particularly interesting strings and I guess some kind of maybe Spanish guitar going on, and then you get some kind of pan flute going on in the background before eventually the beat comes in and it sounds really rewarding. I cannot say no to this beat pattern. My body refuses to resist how goddamn danceable and just outright catchy it is. Especially the way, again, it builds. It definitely doesn't give itself away on the initial, reveal. It just gets more and more intense as it goes along, and I don't mind it fizzling out at the end. But I think my favorite track on the record has to be Timmy's Prayer, which sounds like a really melancholic slow jam, pretty much a track about unrequited love, I believe. How he says that if heaven is a prison, then I'm your prisoner. Just the whole pace of the track is particularly engaging, especially as it's combined with Sampha's really melancholic and pretty impassioned vocal delivery. There's a bridge that comes in that's particularly interesting before it goes back into that percussion rhythm, but there's some layer added onto it, and it just adds... Man, there's just nothing bad I can say about any of these tracks, honestly. Even a track like Under, which while it doesn't necessarily go for that really unapologetic build like tracks like Reverse Faults, Kora Sings, and Timmy's Prayer does, it still has this particularly interesting and intricate instrumental about it. The way there's like these vocals that like are echoed throughout the course of a good chunk of the time. There's also some kind of, I guess, a piano chord or some kind of particularly layered and chopped up synth or something that comes up on the upbeat a good chunk of the time. Sampha just has a way of making sure the listener pays a good amount of attention to each individual track. There are maybe moments here that I wish could have been improved. These aren't bad tracks at all. I still like these tracks quite a bit. There's just something about these tracks that I feel like could have either been added on to or just reworked a certain way. Like the opening track, Plastic 100 Celsius. An instrumental that I really dig, and definitely a vocal moment that really does get me interested in what Sampha's going to do for the rest of the album. I just wish that the verses and whatnot were a little more rewarding before it eventually just fizzles out on the tail end of the track. And you also got the track Take Me Inside, which, again, one of the better vocal moments Sampha's ever delivered, as well as this really nice and eerie piano ballad before it enters into this kind of synthetic realm. And it really does keep me engaged, but I just don't really care that much for how anticlimactic the track is. And the closing track, What Shouldn't I Be, feels like a slow burner that I feel like could have been fleshed out a little more, or maybe there was more of a dramatic atmosphere to this track, like there is quite a bit of a dramatic atmosphere to many tracks prior to the closing track. Especially since the prior track, Incomplete Kisses, is without a doubt one of the most melodramatic tracks on the record, and it definitely is a plus for me. But other than that, I dig the shit out of this thing. I didn't expect to have this much love for this album. I mean, I went into this thinking that Sampha was going to deliver at least a solid project, or a project that gives me an idea of what this guy's identity is on a solo front. But with this thing, he blows those expectations out of the water like it's fish in a barrel. With Sampha's voice And with Sampha's production and what it is he works with on an instrumental front, he is, without a doubt, going to be a force you're going to have to pay attention to for the remainder of his career. This guy is 28. I'm looking forward to the next few decades. If you're someone that's into artists like James Blake or Nicholas Jar, electronic producers that also sing over their own music and do it particularly well, you're definitely going to want to check this out because you'll definitely find something to dig with this album. This album is a plus 2.4 out of plus 3. Yeah, I did this thing a lot. I just wish that some of the tracks here were fleshed out a little more or were reworked to a certain way, but that's nitpicking, really. But if you give this album a listen, what'd you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning for that? And what you consider listening to and reviewing next? CWD Music Reviews here, signing off.